Kia ora, Aotearoa. Welcome, whānau, to the War on News, your weekly sacred cow slaughtering assault on current affairs, beamed live from the palatial Stratus news bunker buried deep beneath the heart of the Greyland Republic. If this show had the ethics of the New Zealand Herald, it would take the money from the ACT Party advert and then hypocritically the next day damn the ACT Party for placing the advert. Hold on, that's not a joke, that's actually what happened. And tonight's political media crimes against reason kill zone, a farming climate denier, an old racist and a homophobic former mayor walk into a bar. No, it's not a joke. It's the next ACT Party front bench. John Key predicts that if the capital gains tax is passed, then the four horsemen of the apocalypse will enter each of our homes and eat our pets. Police threaten TVNZ for exposing their bashing up of a man with mental health issues. Remember, whānau, he ain't heavy, he's a pathological alpha male New Zealand cop who's gonna give you some if you don't shut your gob. Plus this week's Sex in the Super City, Wanko of the Week, and the Barack Obama People's Hero of the Week Award. Leading the War on News this week, brothers and sisters, can the Rupert Murdoch meltdown have happened to a nicer guy? Revelations that his management team were aware of phone hacking of murdered girls, dead soldiers, 9/11 victims, the former Prime Minister, all the while bribing cops. The list of unethical muckraking goes on and on and on, leaving one question. How on earth can the government con New Zealanders into selling TVNZ to Rupert Murdoch now? The government needs a PR campaign to soften New Zealanders up for selling TVNZ to Rupert. Don't think of him as Rupert Murdoch, phone-hacking, power-hungry media mogul who empowers Fox News to be the propaganda arm of the Republican Party. Think of him as Uncle Rupert, who would bring back Paul Henry and appoint Michael Laws, Leighton Smith, Paul Holmes and Alastair Thompson as the new lineup for 6pm Network News. Brothers and sisters, so it turns out that just like The Hobbit, ACC was a manufactured crisis after all. Remember that mean Nick Smith trying to justify privatising ACC because it had massive financial problems when he first came into office? Now it turns out that ACC has so much money that they will in fact be lowering their levies. This remarkable U-turn from near collapse of the entire ACC system because it's in such financial trouble to lowering levies because it's rolling in cash is made more extraordinary by the mainstream media who played such a loyal role to the government in uncritically whipping up the hysteria, now completely ignoring this miraculous recovery. The mainstream media are so biased towards National that if John Key punched a kitten in the face, they would still criticise the kitten for starting it. Brothers and sisters, for those groaning dinosaurs complaining about Alastair Thompson's sacking is another example of the politically correct feminazi stormtroopers of the dicocracy strangling freedom of speech through PC madness, man-hating, lesbo-loving thought police. Let's just remind everyone of the context again. He wasn't joking around like a sexist asshole on Tony Veach's sports show. It wasn't a speech at a bloody stag party. He made his comments in a formal ZB interview with Catherine Delahunty as the man who advises the bosses of New Zealand. His knuckle-dragging sexism was an ignorance too far for someone in that position. Good riddance to bad rubbish. The headlines, whānau, listening to a rich former Reserve Bank governor like Don Brash scream about Maori privilege is like being forced to listen to the grand cyclops of the KKK bitch about social injustice. As for Ansell's extraordinary racist meltdown, claiming Mary's eating eyeballs and aren't being thankful enough for electricity, it's like China chastising Tibet after all they've done for them. Wasn't Rodney Hyde dumped for this very redneck populism? How can Hyde be a toxic brand when Brash has all the bedside manner of a brain-hungry zombie on meth? Hone's use of white mofos raping and pillaging the land for Māori isn't racist, it's historical fact. On One Tree Hill, Sir John Campbell Logan's monument to Māori was meant as a memorial to the passing of the entire race. Such were the dire statistics on the impact of colonialism. Māori made up 50% of the nation of New Zealand in the 1860s, but fell to only 10% by 1891, with them holding less than 17% of their land by the turn of that century. If I was part of an indigenous culture whose experience of colonialism resulted in near collapse of the entire race in as little as 30 bloody years, then I'd be pretty justified in being genuinely pissed off about the manner in which that experience had been sold as universally positive, so shut up as well. Don Brash is to race relations what Alistair Thompson is to gender equality. Moving on with the headlines, whānau. This is John Key's Chicken Little week. He's running out of horsemen of the apocalypse to terrify New Zealanders with. He's used up famine, death and plague to describe what will happen if Labour's dagger through the heart capital gains tax is implemented. And now he's left with war to frighten us over the supposed floodgates of refugees who are going to swamp us from Sri Lanka. As Amnesty International pointed out, he is scaremongering about the refugees. What's going on here is that ACT have outdone themselves with their race baiting this week, and National needs to throw their redneck rump constituents a bit of raw meat to keep the party faith, and no one is easier to blame than refugees fleeing a war zone. He's competing for dog whistles. As for the capital gains tax, here's a list of people who now all agree with Labour. The Dominion Post, NBR, Herald on Sunday, Gisborne Herald, Waikato Times, the Greens, the IMF, the OECD, columnists like Paul Little, Mike Hoskins, Gordon Campbell, Anthony Hubbard, Patrick Smelly, Vernon Small, Corin Dan, Andrea Vance, John Hartlett, Matthew Hooton, John Ruffin, Duncan Garner, John Armstrong, Bernard Hickey, plus academic tax experts and economists and the Treasury. And here's the list of people who agree with John Key. John Key, ACT, and the IRD. That's a lonely threesome. Whānau, we need to stop borrowing and we need to stop cutting public services. The way to do that is to expand the tax take by taxing those currently rich enough to hide their wealth. When John Key attacks the capital gains tax, he isn't speaking for the benefit of New Zealand, he is speaking for the benefit of his wealth class. Key described Labour's capital gains tax as a dagger through the heart of growth. What? Who the bloody hell uses daggers these days? Where did Key get this dagger from? Was it left over from a young Nat hazing ritual? I solemnly kiss the sacred dagger of Adam Smith and shall drive it into the heart of a socialist before I ever vote for a redistributive tax system. Dagger through the heart of growth? What frustrated arts graduate in the National Party Research Unit came up with that clunker? Moving on with the headlines, whānau. Bloody New Zealand police, eh? You would think that in the case of their brutal bashing of a guy with Asperger's syndrome in the wake of the Christchurch earthquake, that they would reflect on their bashing of someone with limited mental capacity issues and back down. But not our boys in blue. Not only are these bashing cops refusing to drop the trumped up charges of looting 2 light bulbs against Cornelius Ari Smith-Vorkamp, they are now launching an investigation into TVNZ for highlighting their bashing. No way. Top that off with the New Zealand police harassing Mana Party members and union activists at home, alongside all the new police search and surveillance powers, whereby the police can break into your home, plant spy cameras and spy on you for 3 days without a warrant. And I think we've reached the tipping point whereby we should start examining whether or not New Zealanders have been conned into giving the New Zealand police too much power. We all know that we should all collectively be a bit ashamed of ourselves for allowing the Sensible Sentencing Trust to hijack the law and order debate into one giant prison clusterfuck. Perhaps we should start asking questions as to how much power we've accidentally handed over to the police, because allowing the cops to threaten the media for an expose on their bashing of someone with Asperger's surely suggests a police force that needs to be reined in. Talking of which, isn't it incredible that we have just had the largest erosion of our civil liberties yet get one step closer to becoming law without our media attacking the government. How Simon Power has managed to piss on the Magna Carta and abolish jury trials, abolish legal aid independence, create absentee trials and video link desensitisation without one murmur from the rest of you is testament to the old saying, there's nothing as stupid as a New Zealander. Whānau, these changes to your legal rights have nothing to do with the quality of justice and everything to do with cost cutting so that the court system becomes based on mercy by the pound, justice without the annoying cost. For crimes punishable by up to 3 years jail time, there will be no jury. Just a judge. Perhaps one of those judges who were described in a 2009 report as being idiosyncratic, arrogant, inflexible, and not up to the job intellectually. We are building a corporate prison nation minus the legal safeguards while expanding unchecked police powers. Shh! Stay stupid, and here's the Rugby World Cup. When it comes to the New Zealand police, Tiki Tane really did sing the right song. Whānau, are you feeling sexy? It's Sex in the Super City time. So, in my latest instalment of how shit this Rugby World Cup is, we've covered off the massive cost, we've covered off the vandalism to the central city being agreed to in order to tart the city up, we've covered the massive spike in domestic violence and sexual assaults, and we've covered off the disgusting expansion of secret intelligence service powers given because of the Rugby World Cup. Now we have homeless hit squads by private companies. Auckland Council has paid for security guards to ensure the safety of homeless people during the Rugby World Cup. I'm sorry, ensure the safety of homeless people? Really? How exactly will the homeless be helped by 2 daily sweeps of Queen Street during the Rugby World Cup? Oh, they will be helped by the police and this $20,000 private security firm by simply throwing them off the street or into a prison cell. How this helps the homeless person, I'm not certain. But wouldn't $20,000 be better spent helping the homeless shelter in Auckland build new shelters for the homeless as a solution rather than a romper-stomper approach? The Rugby World Cup homeless hit squads are coming to cleanse Queen Street so that the visiting tourists don't see that New Zealand is the 7th most unequal country in the OECD. Gosh, I can't wait for this bullshit to be over. Whānau, let's hand out this week's Wanko of the Week award. This week's Wanko of the Week, brothers and sisters, has to go to the sudden attention put on New Zealand women's sex lives. It began with a Timaru gynecologist complaining at a Family First religious function that too many New Zealand girls were promiscuous and used a Durex condom online survey to prove that New Zealand women were way too easy. I'm not sure we want to start basing social policy on the musings of the religious right based on flawed condom surveys just yet, but what consenting women want to do in their downtime really isn't for the God Squad to determine, is it? Maybe New Zealand women are just more honest about their sexual activity. Personally, I'd like to know where they're finding time to have all this sex, as later in the week, the media reported that men over 40 just wanted to cuddle. This means some 21-year-old guy on the North Shore must be almost breaking his back by servicing the entire sexual needs of New Zealand's promiscuous woman. Drench a generation in media rich with sexual imagery to sell toothpaste and cars and then blame that generation for being horny by the Every Sperm is Sacred Brigade, and it starts to sound like an episode of Glee crossed with Skins. Brothers and sisters, let's wrap the show with this week's Barack Obama People's Hero of the Week award. Brothers and sisters, this week's Barack Obama People's Hero of the Week award has to go to Michelle Bachmann, the Republican presidential candidate who makes Sarah Palin look charming. She signed a Christian conservative pledge that stated African American children were more likely to grow up in stable families during the era of slavery than under President Barack Obama. The opening statement of the pledge read, slavery had a disastrous impact on African American families, yet sadly, a child born into slavery in 1860 was more likely to be raised by his mother and father in a two-parent household than was an African American baby born after the election of the USA's first African American president. Seeing as rape by the slave masters was a common practice alongside splitting families up for sale, attempting to rewrite the disgusting history of slavery as a better standard of welfare than is currently enjoyed under the first African American president is a version of reality that is purely Fox News inspired. God created marijuana to help the rest of us deal with Republicans. That's it for tonight, folks. Don't forget Citizen A plays Friday, 8 p.m. Freeview 21 and Sky 89. Follow me on my Citizen Bomber Twitter and Facebook site. It has all the shows posted up online and allows you to befriend other like-minded citizens for romantic news moments. Good night, New Zealand. You stay classy, Aotearoa. Righto.